Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Dunker Spot. We are part of 342 Productions. I am your host, Nekias Duncan, and joining me as always is my co-host, Steve Jones Jr. Steve, happy Monday. How you doing?
Good. What's up, though? Hi, hello. Hit like, subscribe, rate, review, hit the bell. What up, though?
Well, very energetic. I'm sure that will invigorate the listeners to subscribe and hit the bell and all that good stuff. But no, in all seriousness, hope you are doing well. We are exiting All-Star Weekend, and what an All-Star Weekend it was, either complimentary or derogatory, depending on which side of the fence you landed on there. I actually want to talk about All-Star Weekend, which naturally had the events, but I guess thematically, because I'm sure you have seen / heard some of the complaints about what the All-Star Game in particular has turned into, or just general All-Star Weekend complaints. Like, where do you land on where the event / spectacle is right now?
Where do you land on it?
I think there's room for better. I think is where I start. And I say this as someone that naturally loves the weekend as a whole. Like, I always get amped up, especially when I was younger. I say that like I'm 50 or something. But like, I always got amped up for the dunk contest in particular. 3-point shootout is fun. I still miss the Shooting Stars competition. I would like to see that brought back almost, regardless of what else happens or whatever tweaks we may get in the future. I want the Shooting Stars competition back. But like, the weekend is always fun for me. You see a whole bunch of stars. You see a bunch of young rising stars in the league all congregate together. You got celebrities there, random interviews, lots of laughter, lots of fun. And it's supposed to culminate with this All-Star game with all of the superstars in the league, or at least most of them. And I recognize, especially as we enter like this era, like I recognize you're not going to get playoff level intensity. You're not going to get regular season intensity in an All-Star game. So like, I don't think you are just setting yourself up for disappointment if that is your bar. But I kind of echo what I said last year as I was in Utah for what I feel like was, I think that was the worst All-Star game we've had last year. Like, being there in person and feeling the crowd, kind of like, what is this? What's happening? Watching the players, I was like, okay, it can't be this. I went on a full-blown rant last year about that game and where we have to find some kind of middle ground. And I think this year's game was better than last year's, but that also shouldn't be the bar. And I still feel like there is a middle ground between what the players have said, and we should listen to and respect the players, to where, hey, we don't want to get hurt. Like, I recognize y'all want more competition. Y'all want this to be a tighter game. This is also an exhibition. We also have playoff / championship aspirations. We're not trying to have like the Kobe broken nose or anything more serious in an All-Star game, especially since y'all are still tuning in. So like, even with that being said, I think there is still a middle ground to be found between what we've seen the last couple of years and either older All-Star games or like, again, a regular season intensity game or something like that. I think there's still a level to hit. If we could get to 55, 60% effort, even if it tops off there, like, I would be cool with that. Because I recognize this is an exhibition. That's fine. I don't want it to be 25, 30. And I think what ended up happening on the game on Sunday is that you start with the super low effort. Everyone's just kind of running around, getting your dunks, getting your threes and stuff. And the East got out to such a hot start shooting the ball, they low-key put the game away early. And so by the time you got some of the sporadic effort from the West, we get to the second half and like the West chipping down to 12. It didn't really feel like, I don't know, maybe I might have been alone on that front. It didn't feel like the West were really threatening to take that game back. And so like, even if you're going to go with the super low effort, just, get the blood pumping in the first quarter, there can still be a little bit more to where the game doesn't get out of hand early. Because what I'm finding is that once the score reaches a certain level or the deficit hits a certain level, you can see the other team is like, okay, well, I really don't have incentive to put like 85, 90% into this if it's already cooked. I'm not about to get hurt out here. We got games on Thursday. So I don't know. Like, I feel like there's room for better there.
Where's the room for better? The number one thing, if you look at it, guys don't want to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
There was 4 free throws taken?
Yeah.
So we talk about effort, and it was funny because I was watching the first few possessions, and there was actually like defensive rotations and scram switches just at a very slow pace. The West came out a little flatter than the East, and that may have just been an age bit. But when did the game really flip? Tyrese Halliburton scores 15 points in less than 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible display of shot making, right? How many assists did the East have? They made 42 threes. They had 46 assists. It's shot making. And so the East got out to such a hot start. The only way the West was going to do it was to make enough shots to make it close. And I think the only bit is it has to be close to get to the competitive portion of it. You're not getting competitive drives because guys don't want to get hurt. Guys are going to drive, but they're going to clear the lane. Transition, you can run hard and get an easy basket, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the easiest point of resistance? A pull-up or a step back? How many competitive post-ups are you getting?
Not many. I mean, one of the fouls was, what was it, Paul George posted up Trae Young? It hit the Nan one?
Yeah. So which part do you want to see more of? Is it help defense? Is it driving? Like, which portion is it? Because if these guys are saying, hey, we don't want to get hurt. We want to make sure everyone comes out unscathed. We do want to compete, but we don't want to get hurt. Where do we go?
I guess because to your point, like there was the scram switching and some of the early help stuff. I guess for me, more resistance on the perimeter. Like, I guess I can understand, like, once you get into the paint, it's kind of a no-fly zone type beat. Like, we don't want to seriously challenge at the rim. But then, like, okay, give me a floor slap and some slides above the three-point line. Like, even last year, I think some of the most fun of that game, which, again, I think last year's game was bad, to be frank about it. But, like, some of the fun was, like, the one-on-one stretch with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. It's like, even if it turns into, like, the mini battles of one-on-one, like, I would take that portion of it. Slide, see if you can break me down off the dribble. And then if you beat me, okay, y'all chill out because we ain't trying to put nobody on the deck, stuff like that. But, like, early on, it is just, we're not even trying to keep the ball in front.
How many slides do you want? Who on the Western Conference starting lineup was the defensive guy?
Well, I mean, LeBron's that was his 20th All-Star game. And he played the first half. Wasn't going to be him. Wasn't going to be KD. It clearly was not going to be Luka or Jokic. I guess it's Shea by default.
Okay.
Which, 31 for Shea. Shea cooked. But
do you see what I'm hinting at? I'm asking.
I certainly understand your point.
Where are you supposed to rev it up? And you got the one-on-one moments. Trae Young throwing the ball through KD's legs, right?
Mm.
When Paolo Banchero came in the game, I pointed out to you we were watching. It was an interesting shift. It was like, hey, three-pointers aren't really my thing. I think I'm going to drive. And you know who was in the paint? All the help. Which results in Steph Curry, hashtag getting a block, although if you say to any Magic fan, it should have been a foul, which was fun to experience in real time.
To be fair.
But hey, it is what it is. You know what I mean? And so I understand it. You would like it to be more competitive. I think the key is it has to be a close game. Somehow you got to make it close into the fourth quarter. Because you're going to have these shot makers making incredible shots, hitting a bunch of pull-ups, step backs, hitting a bunch of threes, some not contested, some contested. You're going to get transition off misses. And if there's a point of separation, who's going to lead the charge, I guess would be. Who's going to be the people that are going to figure this out? Steph tried to shoot him back into it. He didn't make any. And then what also didn't help was Tyrese had that explosion. And then Dame was like, you know what? I think I'll have some too. And then Jaylen Brown was also trying to sneak into the MVP conversation.
Boy, did he.
And so for me, I'm not going to yell and scream and cry at the state of the game. You hope it gets better. I think it will. I think everyone's aware. The thing for me is, what do the kids think? What's the younger generation think?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I yelling and railing about how something so awful is if that's their highlight? if this is what they like.
Mhm.
That would be awful. Imagine you're 12, 13, 14. You've been there. I've been there. And like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. And everyone's like, this is horrible. Oh, dang, y'all right. Yeah. I don't know.
No, like I do think just overall there is a recognition that needs to happen. Like for people in my generation and older, like it is. I think the game itself is being marketed away from like us per se. It's trending younger. That's why social is popping the way that it is on the NBA side, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. TikTok in particular. Like some of this isn't necessarily for us. I don't go all the way on that side because it is basketball at the end of the day. And again, like I feel like there is room for, again, I'm not saying there should be no highlight dunks, there should be no threes, like Dame just casually dropping down, shot from half court. That was cool to me. I may end up being in the minority on that front among like the non-kids. But like, that was cool for me. But yeah, like I don't want to see a game get away that early. And I'll again say, like, it was certainly a step up from what it was last year. But if that's the bar, I don't think I don't know if that's a great side moving forward. And then you get the comments post game, LeBron saying, we talked about being competitive. We want competitors you don't want that, but also it's a good thing that nobody got hurt. Anthony Edwards saying, like, I'm here for fun. Like, I'm not really here to compete. Like, this is the All-Star game. And so, like, I don't know, to your point about who leads the charge, I'm not sure. Because I do think it's going to take someone, again, not playoff intensity, not even like important regular season game intensity. But it's going to take someone to really give like the 55, 60, 65% effort to kind of push things forward. I'm not sure who that's going to be like moving forward. And if we don't get that, will it be enough for Adam Silver, who did not sound very pleased as he was giving out the East Trophy and stuff? Like, you set the record in points. Well, congrats, this trophy's yours. It's like, oh, all right. Like, does that convince him to do something else? Do we get another format tweak? Like, at some point, it's not about what type of game it is. It's just going to be, okay, how much are y'all putting into this? And if it's going to take more format tweaks, throwing money up, etc., like, I don't know. I don't like that portion of it.
I'm not just I can't disagree with the sentiment. But my thing is, I would much rather everyone yell at how bad the game was than someone get hurt during the game.
Yeah, I think that's where we're at. So, understandable. But I guess while we're on the All-Star game, a 186 win for the East. Damian Lillard was your MVP with 39 points and 6 assists. Very tight vote between him and Tyrese Halliburton as NBA PR released those results. I think it was 5-4 Dame, and then you got the fan votes in there that further pushed it for Dame. I thought that probably could have been Hallie's, but we don't have to rehash all of that portion. That's why we're on the game, because I just started with what's going on, what's wrong with this thing. What were some of your favorite moments from the All-Star game?
Nikola Jokic faking 2 dunks. That man gave you the special at the end of the game. Let me power up real quick. Actually, no. Man did it twice. Luka getting a dunk and then deciding to try and throw it off the backboard and not getting a dunk, and that immediately leading to a Damian Lillard pull up from half court. Like, I think there were pockets that you could enjoy in there. Luka's 2 for 1 was funny to me.
Can we talk
that man
about
with full 3/4 court yeet?
That man really got the inbound, let it bounce. Like, oh, he's actually about to try this. Catch, one dribble, yeet.
But my favorite part was, I think it was Steph Curry in the corner, put his arm up. And then you just have it go almost off the top of the backboard. The race for the MVP, especially, Dame just, hey, Paul George, let me just shoot this deep 3 over you real quick.
Hey, remember this?
Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns passing the ball back and forth like it was D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards. So I mean, there were moments. I think it's one of those deals where, hey, can we just get transition defense? How much does that solve? You know,
talking about the All-Star game with the Bucks.
Okay.
I thought that was
okay.
I thought that was a good one. Actually, the transition defense been better since Doc's been there. But yeah.
Kawhi Leonard immediately letting everyone know that he was not going to play a very long time by making a three and then taking a catch and shoot immediately after.
Well, I said, I am leaving here with something. At the very least, I am leaving here. I appreciate that portion of it. I would like to give quick salutes. One, Karl Anthony Towns. Game's already out of hand. He's pushing for 200 or whatever. He very much wanted that 50 ball.
Yeah.
That bit. Shots, some really fun dunks from Cat in that one, particularly late in the fourth quarter. So I appreciate the surge from him. Like, as I talk about some of the effort and the defense stuff, like, Scotty Barnes sure did try. He might have been the only one on the court at that point was doing it in the first half in particular. But I did appreciate the effort there. And I say this is someone that, like, we were watching the skills competition on Saturday. And if you remember how that went last year when Scotty Barnes and Tyrese Maxey were on the same team, did not end particularly well for them. We got some funny memes out of that one. Very funny, but like in terms of result, didn't end well for them. And so we start the event this year, get the dribble course and everything. Scotty just loses the ball. And Tyrese just forgets what the course direction was. I was like, all right, man. We get to the passing portion of the program. And like at some point during their team go, it was Scotty Barnes, Tyrese Maxey, and Trae Young. At some point during their run before it ends, it's like Trae Young 26, Tyrese Maxey 22, Scotty Barnes 10. And I was like, dog. If you listen to the pod Thursday, this was my selection to win the event. I'm like, dog. And so we're laughing in the watch party. You should check those out. We're laughing in the watch party. And I tweeted, I was like, you know what? Respectfully, I don't need to see Scotty on an All-Star Saturday anymore. And so naturally, we get to the shooting portion, and he's better than just about everyone on his team. I was like, okay, cool, redemption. And then we get the over-the-head heave on the half-court competition. I was like, all right, well, we're back. But All-Star game, I appreciate him challenging shots at the rim. We got like a legit coast-to-coast dunk for him at full speed. We got a short roll read for him to the corner. I think Jalen Brunson hit a three in the left corner. I'm like, you know what? I appreciate Scotty's having fun and he's trying. Even if all of it doesn't work. That guy at the very least, he had fun this weekend. And that's really cool for like a first-time All-Star to have that. So I did want to give Scotty the hat tip there. But yeah, Scotty was fun. Cat was fun. As the sicko, also just trying to find some fun through the All-Star game. Like, I'm always like, okay, what exactly, even if you're running it at 30% speed, like, what are y'all running for real outside of just the run and dunk, run and pull up stuff? Chris Finch had some fun stuff for the West. Him just sprinkling in some elevator was cool. So, like, I was able to find some fun there. You already hit on the Luka portion. That man was hilarious the entire game. Was very much ready for this thing to be over with. But as far as the rest of the weekend, Team Jalen being your Rising Stars champion. I had Team Powell, and that team quickly lost to the G League squad. I was like, oh. That's neat. That's neat. You tried to tell me about Team Jalen.
Hey, man, Jalen Rose had a vision. And you saw it very quickly. My pick was Team Tamika, and then Team Jalen with all that size was like, hey, we know y'all not driving. Go ahead and make these shots. We'll be in the paint. You know what Team Tamika didn't do? Make enough shots.
Make shots.
And boom, here goes Team Jalen. So I admired that little strategy. Like, hey, we're just big, tall. Chet can do a bunch of stuff. We'll figure it out. And they went ahead and got the dub. That was fun. Team Detlef played hard. They played hard.
They did.
They played hard. And it was a quick reminder. Oh, yeah.
These are basketball players that they are trying to get into the NBA.
Yeah. No matter what the setting, you don't want to just draw the G League anything. Shout out to Summer League. Anyways, 3-point contest, 4-way tie.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a whole lot of fun. And Dame, once again, Dame made me laugh. that final rack. You get to the final rack, and it's just like, hey, well, he's got this in the bag. Then he misses, I think, his first 2 on the final rack. I was like, ain't no way. This man about to trick this off. And so naturally, Dame time gets the late shot to go. Back-to-back champion. And then we get Steph versus Sabrina. Sabrina shoots first, ends up with 26. It's like, holy crap, this is dope.
26, huh? The same numbers, anyway.
Same number that Damian Lillard won with. That's pretty
interesting.
shout
out,
that
Sabrina.
Was yeah. I don't want to go full blown rant, but that was so fun for it to devolve into what that devolved into. But at any rate, Sabrina drops 26. Steph with 29 gets the win on the last rack. I was like, you know what? I would like to see more of these. I would like to see more of these. I don't know if that's going to be Steph at W All-Star this year in Phoenix. If they eventually expand it into like a tag team or something like that. I would like to see this become more of a regular event. Seemed pretty cool. Sabrina shooting from the NBA line and putting up 26. That seems pretty impressive to me. And ultimately, you could tell they both had fun. And they got the competitive juices flowing. I enjoyed it. It didn't disappoint for me.
No, it's very important. It's a very important moment. I think, obviously, if you check the numbers, a lot of people tuned in to see what it would look like. And they both delivered. And that should have been the conversation.
It would have been nice if that was just the conversation.
Great shooters do great things. I know Steph had to look at Sabrina's start and be like, hey, man, wait a minute.
let me get right.
Shake this elbow out real quick, dog.
They about to have this. But no, shout out to Steph and also Sabrina.
Oh, can I bring up one thing before you go to the dunk contest, the skills challenge? Anthony Edwards fully committing to the left-hand bit.
For one contest. For one round.
And taking 2 left-hand quarter threes, hitting the side of the backboard. And shout out to Wemby for cursing in the pregame. That's the first thing.
Said, hey, man.
First thing that I popped in. And then you had the quote from Wemby afterwards. Where it's like, Wemby said they wanted to have fun. And after a slight pause, he added, fun is winning. And I'm like, yep, so fast, send me to the next Wolves Spurs game.
Wemby put incredibly large arm on Ant and said, hey, man, can we please do this? And I know Wemby was the natural competitor. He just wants to win. But fresh off of Friday night, where, again, that was my pick. I would imagine, I don't do the gambling thing, but like I would imagine they were probably the favorites heading into the competition. And they lose to the G League squad. So I know he wanted to redeem himself on Saturday. And yeah, we saw a couple of left-hand jumpers, and we did not see any more of the left-handed things from Anthony Edwards. So that portion was funny. To the dunk contest. First and foremost, congrats to Matt McClung. Who just congrats on the weekend, period. Because like go back to the Rising Stars Challenge, like the drives from Matt McClung, and quality defense from him as well. Like he actually showed some stuff. If you aren't just familiar with him as a basketball player, only know him as the dunker. Like really showed some stuff. So cool spotlight for him. And then clearing Shaq on the final dunk. Legitimately clearing Shaq on the final dunk it's insane. Like I recognize we've had a whole lot of dunk contests. And if you are someone like me that will tune into like the college dunk contest, and you just enjoy dunking, like you've seen a lot of stuff. And so like there is an element of what's left to be done when it comes to dunk contests. But I don't think I'm going to get tired of seeing stuff like that. That man hooped. With all the pleasantries out of the way, what on earth was the judging in that competition? Dog. One, what does it take to get a 50? But even beyond that, man, I could not get a sense of this is the bar for a 9, this is the bar for a 9.5, this is the bar for an 8. If you miss your first attempt, we're docking you this much. I didn't really feel the consistency throughout the contest. I was very frustrated. And like this is very much a Nekias case of caring way too much about this. I understand it. I will stand on my island and plant my flag, etc. This is Nekias Duncan. This is not Steve Jones 20. This is not 342 Productions. This is me. But dog, I'm hot from Jacob Toppin. I ain't gonna hold you. I'm just hot. We just should have got the Matt McClung Jacob Toppin final, and we did not get that. I will give a quick salute to Jaylen Brown for like being an actual all-star in the dunk contest, since we don't get many of those these days. So I do appreciate that portion. And like reading some of the quotes after the contest where it's like so many people are like worried about the criticism and like the lose-lose of it all. It's like, nah, I'm out here to have fun. Star should compete. I'm going to be a star and I'm going to compete. So I do respect that portion. But man, all due respect, I feel for Jacob Toppin. And in general, I would have liked to see like a level of consistency throughout the competition with some of the scores that we saw. But that is my hashtag Big Mad for the All-Star Weekend festivities.
That was like mild mad.
It was. I had toned it down. I didn't want to go to like an 8-minute thing on the dunk contest, but yeah, I was not pleased. I was not pleased with the judging.
Well, it sets up the rematch for next year, Nekias. gotta leave the people wanting more.
You right? What in the WWE booking is this?
Long-term storytelling. Jaylen Brown, I respect him for leaning into the left hand bit,
which I just feel like
okay. I unlocked another one. Yes.
I do respect the gamesmanship. I do. The fact that is something to lean into and thus actually be rewarded for with the score is kind of a problem. I'm not going to hold you.
Why is it a problem?
Because if we're doing this, right, if we get a bad passer in the dunk contest and they do a toss before a dunk, are we giving them extra points because the ball landed where it was supposed to? Are we rewarding for pass placement?
Well, I mean, you said Team Jalen couldn't...
I just want to know like how far down the line we can get with this.
You said Team Jalen couldn't pass and they won.
That's true. But they didn't get 3 points for 2-pointers and 4 points for 3-pointers.
That just
they went out there and hooped.
That just ties into your judging deal. That's all that is. Just take the bit, take the LOL, keep it pushing.
We gotta be for real though, man. I'm sorry.
Protect your peace.
I tried, but I kept watching because I wanted to have fun. I don't got a darn Al Gore joke off on the timeline. It was just you can't. We gotta be for real. We gotta be a little bit better on that front next year, regardless of who's in it. We gotta. No dice. Sorry, Steve. But anyway, so there's my judging rant. Again, shout out to Dame, All-Star Game MVP. It would have been Tyrese Halliburton to be. But
side note, I believe Dame, first one since Michael Jordan to win a Saturday event in the All-Star Game MVP.
That's really good company.
I think Tyrese would have had it if he had kept shooting, which was funny because Shaq was like, hey, keep shooting. And Tyrese was like, passes is my thing, right? And he dropped 15 the first 2 minutes. And then he was stuck on 24 for a little bit too long. And I was sitting there like, hey, big dog, might want to throw a couple more on there.
And he still finished with 32.
How many of those 8 were in that last little 2-minute stretch, Nekias? At that point.
So here's the thing, right? I think that's a point in regards to like when they open up the voting and stuff. So like I think that part's fair. But like if we're getting into like the garbage time of it all as a concept, was that not just the second half? Like I don't know, man. Like Dame got 32 points on 15 shots for Tyrese Halliburton. Dame has 7 more points on 11 more shots. Like at a certain point. Also, plus 13 for Dame, plus 16 for Tyrese. Like, what's happened to the game that I love?
Half-court shots.
Yeah. Which were objectively cool. Also, that's a moment I forgot. Tyrese actually doing the Jason Williams elbow pass, and it just not resulting in an assist.
Well,
Because everybody's like, "Wait, what did you just do?"
Giannis was running behind him and then was behind him, literally. Like, hey, wait.
I thought this was for me. What is this? But no, that portion was cool. Any closing All-Star thoughts?
Nah, I had fun. What would you grade the weekend, man?
I guess that's the other part, because I had my thing about the All-Star game. Like, the weekend itself, probably like a B minus. Like, I don't think it was one of the greatest All-Star weekends of all time, but like, I thought the 3-point contest was good. I thought the Sabrina Steph competition was really good. I had fun with the skills competition. I thought the Rising Stars thing was cool. And the dunk contest had some good dunks in it. Like, the judging kind of dropped it for me in terms of enjoyment, because I was just like, what is this? How is this dunk or what? But like, in terms of the actual quality of the dunks attempted, like, I enjoyed it. Judging my timeline, I fired off a tweet about it yesterday, but I feel like I'm in the minority saying, like, I don't really feel like it was a bad weekend. Like, I felt each individual competition was pretty solid and had some hijinks in it. I think of the, Rising Star, skills competition, 3-point contest, dunk contest, All-Star game, like, I feel like the All-Star game was probably the worst of the bunch. And even that was better than the All-Star game last year, in my opinion. So, like, I thought it was fine. I, as a fan of the NBA, would like for it to be great again versus just fine. I don't want fine to become the norm. So I always leave that room for it to be better next year, and I hope it is. But like, I thought it was pretty okay. Oh, quick question for you while we're talking about All-Star weekend things. Any celebrity All-Star game thoughts?
Shout out to Puka Nacua and Micah Parsons for delivering all the football classics. Face
How many dunks did Puka have?
Well, I tried as many as he could. Take this face up through the legs, crossover, spin move, finish.
I was thinking about this morning. Because I was trying to like cross-reference the celebrity All-Star game, the real All-Star game. And I was like, can we think of 2-minute stretches in which ex-All-Star gave as much effort as Micah Parsons and CJ Stroud did? And my list was like random, I think second or third quarter for Scotty Barnes. Second quarter, I think it was for Scotty Barnes. Cat in the fourth. Just Cat in the fourth as he was gunning for 50. Cat had 50 off the bench. And that's like fourth or fifth on the All-Star game list of things to talk about. It's kind of wild. But like those two, I do appreciate like Trey got the and one scored on, but like Trey tried to do some defense stuff. So that was funny to me, and continue this trend of like, hey, Trey been trying on defense this year. That part's cool. But no, the overall point there is that a whole lot of drives and a whole lot of post-ups for Micah Parsons. Like watching the defense get more and more pointed towards, we got to keep this dude out the paint and away from the rim, and him just getting to the free throw line anywhere. Like he took more free throws in that game than were in the All-Star game, period. It was very funny just watching him get to the rim over and over and over again. And CJ Stroud, he might have passed the ball like 6 times that entire game. That part was very funny. It very much turned into this was a one-on-one game with like 8 other people on the court, coincidentally, is what that felt like. But overall, pretty funny. So I just want to see if you had any thoughts on that front before we move off the All-Star things in particular. But if not, we do have NBA games on Thursday, so we got a little bit of a buffer. We want to check in on some awards. I want to say some of the lesser awards, but some of the ones that won't be as contentious to talk about as some of the other ones. So I want to quickly check in since we haven't had an official awards check-in since, I think, mid-December. Where are you at with Coach of the Year right now?
It's very funny you said less contentious because Coach of the Year is all over the place.
It is, but like I don't think people are going to like yell at you in the way where if you have a different MVP ladder than someone else, then that gets wild very quickly. I agree with you that Coach of the Year is super competitive, but like I don't think you'll get the same vigor for having a different order as you would with like MVP.
Get ready to learn the internet, buddy. I think Coach of the Year is very interesting because there's a lot of strong cases. I also think there's a lot of mixed narratives to a degree. Like Joe Mazzulla has the Celtics at 43-12 and playing incredible on both ends of the floor. I just don't hear his name mentioned in these. And I don't understand how. The defense has been really good. The offense has been really good. Integrating Porzingis into this and maximizing him, getting Derek White to play at this level. I know there's the quotes or the thoughts about the tempo sometimes, but the actions they run are pretty fun. And then defensively, being able to tap into different bags with Porzingis. Hey, you guard a non-shooter. We can switch everything else. We can do this zone with Drew Holiday in the middle, just doing Drew Holiday stuff. Like, there's a lot of things that he does that I'm not sure he gets the proper respect for. Then you counter that with the Western Conference, where it's like, oh, Chris Finch has Minnesota right at the top of the West. We didn't see that coming. Oh, he's figured out how to use double big lineups with Cat and Gobert, and Cat and Naz Reid, and Rudy and Naz Reid. Oh, this just keeps happening. They're a great defense in a time where defense isn't necessarily highlighted. They're able to pat the paint and rotate and recover. And Rudy's looking a lot better in space. He's got better gravity on his pick and rolls, the usage for Cat and dribble handoffs, the way that they've attacked different matchups. That's great. Oh, yeah, Oklahoma City. They're very good. They have a very specific style of play. Drive and kick, drive and kick, drive and kick, drive and cut. All the guard screens you want, coming from the corner, step up, slip out, defense, active. Hey, remember when you thought the Clippers were bad?
They're not bad anymore.
Nope. Sure aren't. 2 games out of first place. Ty Lue really turned that thing around. Got them playing great on both ends of the floor. Hey, did you think Cleveland was going to be this good?
That's my next point. Like, hey, JB Bickerstaff, huh?
Here's JB Bickerstaff coaching them up. And you know they went on that huge stretch with like most of their top guys out. And we've talked about it. Click on that episode if you'd like to hear deeper Cavs thoughts. Then you also have Tibbs and Nick Nurse. Now, I think they're going to take a hit because of the injuries.
I would say everybody took a hit.
But, hey, man, what's going on? The Knicks were cooking. The Sixers weren't supposed to be in this area after making that trade. So I just think there's a lot of value to what they've done. And then there's, Coach Michael Malone just chugging along. Just keeps winning games. Frank Vogel, Willie Green.
Eric Spoelstra, who might just be the best coach in the league.
Rick Carlisle. Like, you can go deep. You can go real deep.
Well, so what I'm hearing is you have, 11, 12 candidates?
Yeah, I got a deep conversation. Are you looking for my top 3?
Yeah, what is your top 3 right now? Obviously, we got a whole nother post-All-Star break stretch. We'll check in later in the year, but
right now, Finch, Mazzulla, Dagnalt, Bickerstaff 4.
Okay. I got you. I feel like we have similar names. I think right now, because when we did the check-in back in December, I had Jamal Mosley 1, Chris Finch 2, and Mark Dagnall 3. And my short list candidates at that time were Joe Mazzulla, Nick Nurse, Eric Spoelstra, and Mike Brown. And a lot has happened in about 2 months. So right now, I have the same 3 names, but I have a different order. I have Finch 1, Mosley 2, Dagnall 3. I have Joe Mazzulla and JB Bickerstaff as my short list right now. And this is while agreeing with a lot of the names that you brought up as at least deserving of mention in this conversation. I just didn't want to prolong it. But like the Chris Finch, figuring out the double big thing has been huge for them, figuratively and literally. And the usage of Cat has been a lot of fun. Like we just talked about the Timberwolves on the Old Man and the 3 Things. You can check that out if you want a deeper conversation there. But like I've just really enjoyed this Cat season as a whole. And so like obviously 100% of that isn't Chris Finch. Like a lot of this is Cat playing better and getting more comfortable. Finch has put him in a lot of fun positions. I don't think there's a big in the league that comes off more flares than Cat. And something that you've hit on is just like where he's catching the ball and what those drives are looking like. Something that I looked up, I meant to mention on the pod, but didn't. Then Cat logged 269 drives last year, regular season and postseason. He's at 518 entering the quote-unquote second half of the year. He's nearly doubled his drives this year. And the Wolves are getting more in terms of points per possession off of the Cat drives this year than they were last year. It is wild to increase the volume, increase the efficiency, while also seeing different defenders because you're playing more for this year. It's just been a wildly impressive season for him. And with the Wolves looking like this defensively, like this isn't just the best defense in the league. Like you look at what their defensive rating is relative to the rest of the league. Like this is one of the best defenses we've seen in the past decade. Just statistically, again, there are still playoff questions they'll have to solve once we get there. But in terms of what they've done so far, like this is legit a historically good defense we're seeing in Minnesota. For them to get to be that stingy in the half court, for them to be so much better in transition than they were last year. And as they figured out some of the nuance in the half court, like something you've talked about is the nuance between what they're doing with Cats coverage-wise and what they're doing with Gobert. Them being able to figure that out and get that connectivity has led to, I think they were 26th in defensive rebound rate last year. Made no sense to have that kind of size to be a bad team at closing out possessions. They're top 5 this year. And so they're getting stops and they're turning those into more opportunities offensively. And as they work out the kinks there, Minnesota just looks like a very, very, very dangerous team. So I did flip-flop the Chris Finch at 1 right now. We'll see what this post-February stretch is going to look like for the Wolves. But I have them 1. Jamal Mosley, with what he's done with Orlando this year, the continuation of their defense from last year, the defense has hit another level this year. They've consistently been in the top 5, top 6 all year long, working through some of the, the lack of shooting that they have offensively. But as I said, when we talked about the Magic early in the year, I feel like this is generally a good spacing team. They just don't have the shooting to capitalize on a lot of stuff right now. But having that kind of defensive foundation with this younger roster, while also dealing with injuries in the guard room, injuries in the front court, they missed Franz for a stretch, and they're still 5 games above 500. They're not that far out from a top 6 seed. I still remain impressed with what Jamal Mosley's been able to do. And Mark Daigneault, like OKC, just consistently has been top 10, top 8 offense and defense throughout the year. To carve out this kind of defense with a lack of traditional size, even with Chet at the 5, isn't the bulkiest guy. But what they're able to do defensively, how they're able to turn teams over, the speed that they play with, offensively, we've talked about OKC a bunch and how much I enjoy it. Everyone could be a ball handler. Everyone could be a screener. Everyone could be a driver. The cutting principles that they have, they put so much strain on your defense, obviously led by an MVP candidate in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I really enjoyed the Daigneault year. I'm glad you brought up Joe Mazzulla, though. Especially as you bring up all the things that they're doing defensively. I don't get takey, but this feels like one of the more underrated great defenses in the league with how they're talked about. Because so much of the conversation about Boston is, will they be able to figure out the offense stuff in the playoffs? Which is fair. Also funny to talk about, considering this is a team that's been to the conference finals, a team that's been to the finals. It's not like they haven't proven they can't get to the big stage. But the zone in particular is so funky and so fun. It's a testament to the personnel. Not every guard can operate in the middle like Drew Holiday can. But to even have, this is something that Nick Nurse will be praised for. Look at all these funky zones. Joe Mazzulla hasn't gotten that, which is weird to me. He should. It is fair to have those postseason questions. And it's something that I personally have tried to find a balance with in my time covering, not just the NBA, just covering basketball. How do I balance the questions that I have for this team that I know is going to be a contender versus acknowledging what they're doing right now? And I've personally been trying to do a better job acknowledging this is really good. Even if it winds up not quote unquote mattering because they lose in the second round of conference finals or whatever. This is really good right now. This is what it is right now. Joe Mazzulla absolutely deserves more love in the Coach of the Year conversation. So sorry to belabor that, but that's my top 3 right now. Shout out Joe, shout out JB Bickerstaff. Eric Spoelstra still doing a really good job. That's where I'm at with Coach of the Year. With most improved, who would your top 3 most improved be right now?
I mean, it's probably going to be some version of Maxey Şengün Barnes with the side of Tyrese Halliburton. I have Kobe White 1. I think he's been incredible. He's been really strong for the Chicago Bulls. That scoring has been really important, especially with Levine being out. I have Jonathan Kuminga 2. I think he's been able to grow into a different version of himself, attacking and scoring and finishing. That's been important for a Golden State team trying to find themselves. I have Jalen Williams 3 in OKC. I think being able to perform at that high of a level, jumping up with the scoring, the shooting, improving to that degree for an important team that needs him to contribute, and never being afraid of the moment. I think those would probably be my top 3 right now. I had Desmond Bane earlier, but he is injured.
Injuries. Yeah.
So that is my 3.
Okay. I like that. I like that list. Like, I was going to come in jokingly like, hey, Steve, how do you feel about the Luka case? But I'm not going to do that to you today. Okay, I think between like my actual list and some of the short list candidates I have, I think we're pretty similar in the guys that we're thinking about. I love the Kuminga nod. Like, I love the timeline of what is my role? What are my minutes? Am I closing? Am I playing with Andrew Wiggins at all? Big athletic article. He's losing faith in Steve Kerr and then immediately just turning into 25-6, whatever it is right now. Like, that growth has been substantial. He has certainly butt his way into this conversation. I wouldn't be surprised, especially at this point, if Golden State's able to continue their run. They've looked a lot better as of late. If Golden State ends up being like 7 seed, 8 seed, or even they get to 6 somehow with a ridiculous second half of the year run, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Kuminga really does factor into the top 3 and if not win it all together. He's been really good. And he's going to shape a lot of their future moving forward if he's just this player moving forward. But for me, I have Scotty Barnes 1. I love the C. But no, I have Scotty Barnes 1. I do think like the heading into the All-Star break stretch for him and for Toronto has really put a damper on what his year has been. He has taken on so much more usage. And this is before Pascal Siakam traded, OG Anunoby traded. And so like the wins just aren't going to come. And I would imagine one, if the losses keep piling up, and if we do see a similar dip in production like we saw the last couple, last 2-3 weeks heading into the All-Star break for Scotty, like he's probably not going to be number 1 for me if that dip continues. But on aggregate, 28-6, career high true shooting percentage, career high from the field, career high on 2s, career high on 3s, making and taking more 3s than he ever has. And the defense is perked up mostly because, again, on aggregate, he's been in a role more suited for what he does well defensively than what he doesn't. I feel like I'm repeating myself with the All-Star case where I thought he wasn't going to be an injury replacement because of that slide. I was like, I don't want people to forget how good he's been or lose sight of how good he's been overall this year just because of what it's been lately. And so that's why I have Scotty 1 right now, but that could flip because number 2 on my list is Kobe White. He was someone that has been pretty inconsistent throughout his tenure in Chicago. And a lot of that is out of his control. Team dynamics changing, rotations consistently changing around him, who he's playing with changing pretty consistently. But his growth as a decision maker, his growth as a shooter, him being even more aggressive offensively, I do wish some of the legit defensive flash that we saw from him last year, something I pointed out on the pod, I wish that carried over more consistently this year, but it also makes sense with him getting this much more usage offensively in Chicago since Zach LaVine's been down. I just have a lot of fun watching this dude play and watching this dude bake in fourth quarters in particular. We're getting to the questioning the hierarchy portion of the program with some of the fourth quarters in Chicago. And he's very much working through those kinks between when do I defer to tomorrow, when do I recognize I got to cook and I'm going to go. So that's going to be fun to watch just in the second half of the year in general, like how much more ownership he gets of the offense. But Kobe White's up to number 2 for me. And he was on the short list when we talked about this in December. So always been on the radar, but he's up to number 2. And I would not be surprised if he ends up overtaking the top spot for me by the end of the year. Number 3, I have Tyrese Maxey. And I do wonder where some of the numbers are going to land with him with Embiid being out and some of the increased attention he's seeing. That's why it helps, to your earlier point, what Buddy Hield's been able to add to this offense, the shooting gravity, the way he can be used to unlock more driving lanes or wider driving lanes for Tyrese Maxey. But on the whole, no James Harden, ball in his hands a whole lot more, taking more shots, making more passing decisions. The bump and assist with the turnovers not jumping up dramatically is insane to me. And it's not just because of him being like a safe passer, which is something that I talked about a little bit last year and questioned, like, hey, when does he dial it up? Is it worth questioning if he can dial up the passing aggression? We've seen more skills from him. We've seen a little bit more manipulation from him this year. He's in my top 3 right now. I love that you brought up Jalen Williams, one of my faves that I want to bring up in this conversation, but still falls underneath like my personal games played thing. Hasn't played 79% of games. That's Jalen Johnson in Atlanta. I think his growth has been fun to track on both ends of the floor. The shooting, the driving, the playmaking. Defense still inconsistent, but you do see the strides from where he was even last year in limited minutes. If he ends up playing most of, if not all of these games remaining in the season, I think he'll, quote unquote, qualify for me. I don't have an official vote, but sticking to the 65 games / 79% of games limit, he'll reach that and he'll probably factor into the top 3 for me. Like, that's how impressive the jump for him has been for me. So that's where I'm at with most improved right now. 6th man of the year, though. This was one that had me in a headlock when we talked about this the first time. Continues to have me in a headlock because of who's like now dropping out of the list. Like Austin Reeves is playing better, but he's also started more games he's come off the bench with. So like he literally doesn't factor in for me right now because he started too much. Like doing if you remember my rant from a couple of years ago, where it's like I don't think you can have 2 candidates from the same team. Like pick one. So like doing that battle between Norman Powell and Russell Westbrook because they bring value in different ways to that team. And trying to parse through that portion. Who do you have for 6th man of the year right now?
Malik Monk 1, Norman Powell 2, Tim Hardaway Jr. 3, Karis LeVert right there.
Okay, got you. For me, Karis LeVert also a short list guy for me. So I guess he would technically be 4th. Isaiah Joe would be 5th for me. I have Naz Reid 1, Malik Monk 2, Norman Powell 3. And I'm trying to decide, like, the other guy on the list, Tim Hardaway Jr. You had Tim Hardaway Jr. in your top 3. Like, I'm trying to decide, like, if I'm just being unfair to him. Because, like, the shot making is so important to what Dallas does. There's also kind of an element to, okay, what else aside from this shooting am I getting? And then also just parsing through, like, how I think about 6th man of the year. Like, naturally, depending on the team you're on, like, the starter should perform better than, when you're on the floor. But I at least want you to win your minutes. And that's where a guy like Naz Reid ended up getting the edge over Malik Monk for me, which we should acknowledge. One, Malik Monk's just been good all year long. The shot creation speaks for himself. The growth in playmaking from Malik Monk has been incredibly fun. And it's probably gone under the radar on like a national scale just because the Kings haven't been as explosive as they were last year or as surprising as they were last year. But Malik Monk has legitimately grown as a passer. Like, it's easily reflected in the assists per game and that jump. But, like, just watch some of the reads that he's making. He's been a lot of fun. But I went with Naz Reid. He's been better defensively than I anticipated. And he remains a walking mismatch offensively in a way that's incredibly enjoyable to me. But also, like, the numbers also back that up. This has been a very efficient scorer this year. But how important the shooting and the drives have been, and him being able to hold water defensively has further unlocked some of the 2 big setups for Minnesota. His minutes with Cat, his minutes with Rudy Gobert. He's been able to toggle playing off of both of those guys and slide against more of a spacer when Rudy's on the floor, being able to get to the drives a little bit more when he's out there with Cat. And the Wolves have won his minutes in a way that the Kings haven't with Malik Monk. Even though, funny enough, the Malik Monk on De'Aaron Fox minutes, De'Aaron Fox off minutes are slightly positive, which is fun. But I've just really enjoyed the Naz Reid season so far. He was a short list guy, I think, for me when we talked about this back in December, but he has shot up the ranking for me. But with shout outs to Tim Hardaway Jr., to Karis LeVert, to Isaiah Joe, who I don't think among the actual voters, I don't know how serious he's going to factor in. Like, that's very much you got to watch him / really believe in some of the advanced stuff to push the number 1 case for him. But Isaiah Joe has been important to OKC's bench. But I think that is where I am with 6th man of the year. Let's get to some news. Some news that broke a little bit earlier as we were going through some of our things. The Nets firing Jacque Vaughn. A 71-68 record across 2 seasons in Brooklyn. The Nets are 21-33 this year, heading into the post All-Star break stretch. I certainly didn't see this happening today. I think with some of the play we've seen from Brooklyn this year and some of the other like coaching changes around the league, for me, it was just kind of like, I wonder what Brooklyn is thinking right now and where that's going to go. But even then, it was kind of, I was talked off of that ledge he just signed the extension last year. And so at minimum, I thought maybe next season would be the on notice year for Jacque Vaughn if Brooklyn continues to slide. And, give them the full offseason, see if they're going to make any kind of trades or what may happen, and then give them the run there and then go from there. I was not expecting a all-star break firing. So I'm kind of really trying to react to this in real time. Did you have any early thoughts on the Vaughn stint?
February 21st, 2023, Brooklyn Nets coach Jacque Vaughn has agreed to an extension that is expected to keep him under contract through the 26-27 season. February 19th, 2024, the Brooklyn Nets fired head coach Jacque Vaughn. Less than a year.
That's insane.
50-point loss to Boston to end the first half of the season. And I think it speaks more to you just don't have a very long rope or a long window these days. You need to build something that is going to allow us to acquire more people or more talent or get more in the room. Did he get enough time? I'm not even sure. I mean, they had to pivot. He had to pivot. And then this was the result. It seems quick to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like if you're going to make a move, teams are more willing to make it happen. And the question would become, which area do you feel like you progressed in? Now, this is just me putting my thinking cap on because I didn't see this coming. I was pretty shocked. I thought he had put the work in, but things felt off. Did you ever feel like there was just positive momentum for Brooklyn as far as the offense is here, the defense is here? It felt like they were working, trying to find it, trying to scrap, but you're not where you want to be. You're in 11th place. And you have Chicago without their star working to figure things out. You have Atlanta going up and down, but working to figure things out. Which tier do you feel like you're in? And I just wonder if that loss at Boston was just like, all right, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, like I guess to that point, like there have been random pockets of like you remember talking about the Nets early in the year. It's like, very quietly, top 10 offense right now. They are hitting all of the threes. And then random stretch, over the last 3 weeks, the Nets have like a top 10 defense right now. Seems like the switching is starting to hit again. That's cool. But to your point, it doesn't feel like they've really been able to put all of that together, and the record highlights that. But that also bleeds into the question that I wanted to ask you, and you kind of touched on it. But thinking about some of the inconsistency for Brooklyn this year, and especially if it's capped off with a 50-point loss, like those aren't the best vibes. And then you get hashtag podcast, and like I don't think that reflected super well on Brooklyn. But like, how much of this was him, and how much of it was the personnel? Because I think when going back to when we did the season preview with Brooklyn, like okay, these are a lot of talented wings. This should be a switchable group. Do we know if they have a true born number one option to really unlock things? And we both had questions about that. What was this team going to do against switches in light of that reality? We both had questions about that portion of it. And then you toss in, I think Mikal has been very good. And when we did some of the early All-Star check-ins, especially when I had like the games played thing, like Mikal was like on the fringe of being like an All-Star for me. And I think it was at least in consideration for you. But like Mikal he's been very good. I don't think he's wowed this season. I don't think all that is his fault, but I don't think he's particularly wowed this year. You got the Cam Thomas scoring bunch, but like Cam's been in and out of the lineup. And when the scoring isn't hitting, like there are still questions about what kind of impact you bring. You still have Ben Simmons. You want him to grease some of the wheels, even if that's just in transition, but giving them another driver, giving them another playmaker in the open floor. Ben Simmons has been in and out of the lineup. And from there, it's just like, okay, what exactly are you building the offensive foundation around? Because if you're looking at what kind of growth we're going to see on either end, it's not like Brooklyn hasn't done different things. Like we talk about how switchable they can be. Like they've had Nick Claxton to drop more than ever this year. Like they are doing different things defensively. And even Nick Claxton's missed some time. My early inclination is that there just has to be like a locker room element. And even if it isn't like full blown, he's lost the locker room stuff. Like I don't have sources there. I'm not in Brooklyn, so I'm not going to speak to that like I know because I don't. But like for me, I look at what the personnel was heading into the year and some of the questions that we had from the outside and how some of that has played out this year. Then you also factor in injuries. And it's just like, well, what kind of answers were we going to get from Brooklyn exactly this year? Like, I think the only thing you could firmly feel, quote unquote, more comfortable about is, okay, Mikal is not a top 10 player. He is not an offense unto himself. I don't think that's enough to get Jacque fired. And if that's the only thing you can glean from the season because of what your personnel is and what challenges that poses, and then injuries on top of that, I don't really know I don't know from the outside. Again, there may be some internal stuff that I'm just not privy to. Like, as of recording, like, I just checked my phone very quickly. All I've seen is like the Woj, the Shams, those tweets. I haven't seen like a follow-up article from either of those guys yet. So like maybe we'll get a nugget or two from one of them at some point later today as we record. But like as of now, like I don't have anything internal to work off of either. So again, I figured this may just be a next year is the hot seat year if they want to make a move. I didn't see All-Star break.
They've won 8 of their last 31 games.
Eesh.
They were 13-10 on. They were 13-10 on December 13th. They're 21-33. And so I don't say that as like, oh yeah, it totally should have happened, but
you at least have something to point to.
The math is the math, you know, and how much longer are you going to push for it? You know what I mean? Because here's the thing. I was there almost 10 years ago now, 8 years ago now, whatever. We went 10-27. They cleaned house after making the playoffs. It's you got to win. You got to deliver. There's high expectations. There's a desire to be something. And if you don't deliver on that, we'll find someone who can. It's my initial gut reaction.
Yeah, I hear you. That's just tough. That's just really tough.
It's the business.
Yeah. You're not wrong there. It's just, man, just kind of jarring, especially like to get that as we are recording this kind of thing. So it's like, oh, this is like, we got to think about this now. That's interesting. But okay. While we're on the NBA news line, the Milwaukee Bucks did indeed sign Danilo Gallinari, once again, averaging 7 points, 3 boards and an assist in 15 minutes per game this year. Only played 6 games with the Pistons after being traded from the Wizards. 9 points, 58% from 3 on moderate volume in 15 minutes per game for Detroit. Steve, what are your early thoughts on the Gallo fit in Milwaukee?
It'd be interesting to see where he's used, how he's used. Does he play 5? Does he play 4? But you got someone who can space the floor and knock down some shots. Should be a plus for Milwaukee.
I'm right there with you. Like, I guess for me, my early thought, he should help offensively, period. That's, as you said, someone that can space, someone that can be a pick and pop option, someone that should still be able to beat switches on the block if you do switch a guard onto him. So depending on who he's a screening partner for, that could be pretty fruitful for you, get you some points in the pinch. I'm curious about some of the combinations that he's going to be used in. Like, I want to see who he's playing with. If it's going to be a Bobby Gallo front line, even against second units, I do worry about that defensively. Just because they play Bobby so aggressively against pick and roll in particular. And Gallo has size, but like Gallo isn't, like he's kind of a 5 by default right now, but like he's not your traditional rim protector. So I do kind of wonder how Milwaukee goes about kind of insulating him defensively. Do we see like more Giannis at the 5? Or are we just going to see like Giannis, Bobby, and Gallo out there together? And so you can try to hot stash Gallo on like a weaker wing player and kind of go that route. Like I would imagine that's what Doc will try to do if you get him out there. So like I do have the early defensive questions, but offensively, I think the value is a pretty clean fit there. Like the spacing is going to be important. The post is going to be important. Still someone obviously at a much lower volume now just because of the minutes and the usage, but someone that can still get to the line quite a bit. That should help Milwaukee as well. Like I definitely see the value add. I'm going to be keeping an eye on how he's used defensively though. And speaking of defense, the Wizards and Delon Wright agreeing to a buyout. Wright expected to sign with the Miami Heat. Very low minute per game count compared to previous years, only 13.8 minutes per game, but 4 points, nearly 3 assists, shooting 37% from 3. Only 41% on 2s. Generally a good slasher. Hasn't had much success inside the arc this year, but that could just be a volume deal. Steve, how do you like the Delon Wright fit in Miami?
Got the size, length, and defensive mentality to help the Heat.
I'm excited. I am excited. As we talked about the Heat this year, I've had questions about the perimeter defense and how well this team can defend. Drives to keep the ball in front. In particular, he should help on that front. And as this Heat team, heading into the All-Star break, and it could just be a heading into the All-Star break deal, but as the zone has ticked up for Miami as of late, having Delon Wright at the edge of the zone or at the top of the zone, whichever one Miami wants to go with, that should be very valuable. He has been one of the NBA's underrated and elite event creators in that regard. Being able to get steals, being able to get deflections, the ball pressure, I think, is going to be very important. Offensively, takes care of the ball, not an advanced passer, but makes sound decisions with it. Solid on catch and shoot jumpers. Not enough to where I think teams are going to be scared of him from the perimeter. So there is a bit of a lineup deal for me that I'm going to be keeping an eye on with Miami. Who are they pairing him with? Like if he's out there with Jimmy in particular, that defense should be very fun, which very quickly, my best will wishes to Jimmy Butler as he took some time away. So I hope he is doing okay and hope his family is doing okay. But when Jimmy is back, those two on defense together should be a whole lot of fun. Offensively, I want to see how much teams help off of Delon Wright. Is he going to be more activated as a cutter? What is that portion going to look like? But I like the ad. As far as buyout signings go, this should be pretty fruitful for Miami. I'm excited to see what that's going to look like. And then just very quickly, some other signings, some conversions to standard contracts. Wright in Portland getting a 3-year standard deal. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl in New Orleans getting a 2-year standard deal. And then on the W front, a couple of training camp signings. So on the roster, not officially counted against the cap yet until they make the roster. Training camp in a couple of months now. But Shea Petty going to the Connecticut Sun. The Sun also signing Jocelyn Willoughby, former wing for the New York Liberty. So adding some defense at the very least. Taking some flyers there. Really adding to the ethos of Connecticut there. So I am excited. Any thoughts on Doo-Wop or Jeremiah Robinson-Earl or any of the Sun moves?
Nice to see those conversions. Earning your way to a standard contract is always fun. I think it's well deserved in both cases. So that's about it for me.
Okay. Fair enough. If we don't have any closing thoughts, we can get on out of here. Thank you for listening to and or watching this episode of The Dunker Spot. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us. We are on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Podbean. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. Also, if you are watching this on JJ Reddick's YouTube channel and you are not subscribed to JJ Reddick's YouTube channel, do yourself a favor and subscribe to JJ Reddick's YouTube channel. We are here every Tuesday. But in general, lots of great content on the channel you want to be locked in on. So check that out. You can follow me on Twitter at Nekias NBA. You can follow Steve on Twitter at SteveJones20. Join the Dunker Spot community on Twitter if you want to have some fun discussions in there. Join us for our online Dunker Spot watch parties. If you have a League Pass subscription via Jason Tatum or otherwise, you can watch games live with us, real-time analysis, great vibes. We're breaking down plays during commercial breaks. If we get some fourth quarter or overtime nonsense, Steve is breaking down what happened, why it did or didn't work. So if you want that kind of analysis or just a safe haven to talk about life stuff, this is the place for you. The link should be in the description, podcast, YouTube, or otherwise. Should be hyperlinked. If so, enter your information. It is free, no shenanigans. And if it isn't hyperlinked, just copy and paste that into your browser. Once again, it is free, no shenanigans. Come rock with us. Come have some fun with us. And with that, we will catch y'all later in the week.
Good job, Nekias. So they don't like 80s basketball, but they want the All-Star game to be 80s basketball? Is that the bit?